Hey, what's up, folks? James from Junkyard Fox. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite subject, knives. Now, it's going to be a very relaxing tabletop type of video. As you can tell, I'm at my house. I generally hate filming at my house. I think it's so boring, but I did try to go film this exact video earlier today out in the mountains, and it was really windy, and it knocked over my brand new tripod and broke it. Yeah, so you got to roll with the punches, and being an outdoor channel, sometimes the weather sucks. So I'm just gonna I'm just gonna improvise and just film at home where I'm nice and safe from the winds. And a couple of days ago, I was talking to my Patreon group, and I was wondering, if they had any suggestions for video ideas for a Patreon-only video. And a gentleman by the name of Jason Wise wisely suggested that I make a video on my knife history. So starting from my earliest days when I was getting into camping and EDC carry, preparedness, all that stuff, to now, what were the blades that I was carrying, the models, what the trends I was following, and what did I move away from? How did I evolve as an outdoorsman? And I thought that was very interesting. I thought that was a very good idea. So, Jason, thank you so much for this suggestion. I will be mailing you a Cuervo Negro patch to show my appreciation for the great idea. So let's talk about it. So once again, I'm going to talk about my first knives when I first got into the outdoors all the way to now. And you get to know my philosophy and stuff. Now, before I turn the camera around and show you the knives that I do have, let's talk about the first one that I officially got when I decided to get into all this wilderness survival stuff. I got it around 2011 and I no longer have it. So I want to just talk about it here beforehand, and that was a Camillus Titanium Cuda. If I remember correctly, I think that's what the model was. It was some knife at Walmart. Me and my buddy Thomas, we went to Walmart. I bought a BB gun, beef jerky, and a knife because we were going to get into all this stuff. Once again, this is around 2011, so I was already like about 22 years old. I didn't grow up, in the Boy Scouts or anything. I camped and I fished as a kid with my grandpa and my dad, but not enough where I would carry a pocket knife on me. And so my technical first one was already 2011, and I don't even think I cut anything with it. I've had it for about 2 weeks before I lost it, and I wouldn't know what to tell you, how well it performed. For what it's worth, it was a pretty knife. It was about 30 bucks. Once again, it was Camillus. I don't even think Camillus is around anymore. So soon after losing that Camillus folding knife, I did get me this. Now this is a Ka-Bar USMC fighting knife, but this is a knockoff. This is some made in China budk.com knife I got. Now keep in mind, at the time I'm like 22. I am broke, so I could not afford the real thing, so this was just gonna have to do. And you get what you pay for. Now, to its credit, it did help me a lot in those first early stages. So I'm doing a lot more research on YouTube about survival and gear reviews, and I'm watching people batoning, which was, it's so impressive when you first see that, it's so cool. So of course I got me something that was full tang, that had a 90-degree spine for striking ferro rods, all that stuff. So to its credit, once again, I did do my first batoning with this thing. It is one tough knife. As you can tell, the coating is absolute crap. It started falling apart damn near immediately. But I was able to baton. It does have a somewhat okay 90-degree spine. I did strike my first ever ferro rod fire with this and some cotton balls, and it's pretty tough. It does have a crushing pommel. This would influence me years later down the line with my own knife design, but this is the first time I was exposed to a crushing pommel. I didn't know that was a thing until I got this knife. But once again, as I said earlier, you get what you pay for, and this is cheap. Now, it's a tough steel. I batoned through some tough stuff with it, but it cannot hold an edge worth a damn. I cannot get this thing to sharpen up right. It sucks. And of course it's heavy, so it's very cumbersome. The handle is very uncomfortable, say you're batoning or something, and it's heavy, it's clunky. The sheath that it came with was some pleather sheath that was absolute crap. It started falling apart within days, so that's been in the garbage for years now. I don't have a sheath for this now. I don't reuse it anyway. I did butcher my first rabbit with this knife as well, and I quickly realized this is not what I was looking for. So yeah, I really realized pretty early on that I did not like big, heavy, chunky survival knives. I was looking for something more thinner, more slender, more precise. So a good starter knife, but honestly I quickly moved on from it. Within like 2 months I had ended up buying me a Mora Companion. Now, of course, at this time, I'm absorbing all these YouTube channels and all these videos and knife talk, and I'm watching Dual Survival and stuff like that. So I'm quickly exposed to the whole Mora hype and the craze around them. And, you know, they're 20 bucks. I did get me the Mora Companion, not the HT, just the regular version, carbon steel. An outstanding blade. It runs circles around this for what I'm trying to do, which is, you know, feather stick, and, you know, if I can butcher an animal or stuff like that. So that one worked beautifully. I sadly no longer have it. I was dating this girl for a few years, and she would use it, and she lost it. I don't know what she ended up doing with it, but that Mora Companion has been lost to time. And yeah, it sucks. I had great memories with it. I actually flew up to Ohio to take Dave Canterbury's classes, and that's the knife I took. And so it was a great knife. You know, it's nice and lightweight. It's only like 20 bucks. So, you know, for some broke fool like me, that was great. The only thing I didn't like was the sheath. To this day, I think the sheath sucks. But yeah, great knife. Very much an upgrade over this. So as I'm using that Mora Companion, I'm still absorbing a ton of information, watching YouTube videos, reading books, watching Dual Survival on TV, stuff like that. So I'm quickly learning a lot of the stuff, and I very much enjoyed the Mora Companion, but I realized, you know, at this point I've already learned about Horace Kephart. I'm studying him, this very enigmatic figure, and I realized I kind of like more of the rustic side of knives, the old world stuff, which I shouldn't have been surprised because, you know, I love Westerns. So, you know, I had a couple extra bucks in my pocket, and I decided, even though the Mora Companion was a cool knife, that I'm going to try something different. And so, lo and behold, I end up getting the Condor Kephart knife, something a little bit more old school. And this is a really cool knife. Even to this day, I use it a lot, like, you know, eating steak and eggs and stuff in the morning. Once again, it's got that Horace Kephart shape, you know, very old world, you know, wooden handles. I believe this is made out of walnut handles, the scales, and then 1075 high carbon steel. It's about 35 bucks with a very beautiful leather sheath. And once again, you get what you pay for. I think, you know, for the time being, I don't have a lot of money. This knife was pretty cool. Also, this knife was very much a stepping stone into customization. You know, everybody tweaks their gear and, you know, personalizes it, and this was no different. First, I bought a file, and I filed the spine so we can have a 90-degree spine because it didn't have that. So I wanted to strike a ferro rod with the back of my blade, so I got that done. And then other than that, it did come with this very ugly black tacky coating that I have no idea what Condor was thinking when they did that. So I ended up buying some sandpaper, and I forgot what kind of solvent I used to kind of remove it. And I mean, you can still see some like right there, but for the most part, I kind of stripped it so it has a nice, you know, a regular blade that, of course, being 1075 high carbon, it picks up this beautiful patina, makes it look old world, you know, something that, you know, your grandpa would have had, you know. So yeah, you know, I'm customizing it. I'm learning how to sharpen my knife, and, you know, once again, I'm learning this stuff along the way and customizing it the way I like it. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you get what you pay for, and at the time of using this knife, it's within like 2 years already of getting into the outdoors, and I'm fishing a lot, so I'm gutting a lot of fish, and this knife could not keep an edge. It was frustrating. I don't know if it's the 1075 steel or if it was Condor's heat treat at the time. Who knows, maybe they're better now, but this thing was just really annoying. So, I mean, you know, on the upside, I learned how to hone my edges and keep them sharp, but my God, this thing, after a day's worth of use, is already dulling, and I couldn't stand that. So, once again, I'm already using this, you know, been doing this for about 2 years already, so it's safe to say that I'm going to stick with the hobby. So, after this, I did decide to make the jump to my first ever American-made custom blade, and I bought the LT Wright Genesis in a saber grind. I no longer have that knife, sadly, so I don't have I'll just put some B-roll here, but I'm sure you guys are well aware of the LT Wright GNS knife, but it's a Ray Mears inspired woodlore type of knife. You know, it's got a pointy spear point kind of blade, but mine had a saber edge. 01 tool steel, like hardest scales with it's like a dark red orange color. Going from $35 knives to a $250 knife, I mean, you can tell a world of difference in the craftsmanship, the quality, the upscaling of materials that you're using. The first 2 years that I was doing Junkyard Fox videos, I was using the GNS. That was my go-to knife on my belt, and it was a great knife. So you see, once again, go back to my early videos and you see me using that knife. And I mean, it was great. Once again, American-made quality. The 01 tool steel was leagues better than this crappy 1075 steel. It had far more heft than this one without it getting clunky like this one. And sadly, in 2018, I was going through a very rough time financially after a breakup, and I had to sell a lot of stuff. And sadly, I ended up selling the GNS, so I no longer have it, but it played a very pivotal role in my early years. It's a great knife. In fact, if you go to my first ever Junkyard Fox logo, it's a fox with the knife in its mouth, and the knife that it has in its mouth is the LT Wright GNS, because it was such a pivotal moment for me when it comes to knives. In fact, I have a bandana here with that logo, and check it out. You know, so if you've ever owned a GNS, you could tell right away that's the knife that he has in its mouth. Now keep in mind, through all this stuff, particularly after this, that I already started the Junkyard Fox channel, I'm going to be testing a ton of knives that are sent my way. Some are sent directly from the company for me to keep. Some were passing around by, you know, with other friends that are YouTubers, stuff like that. Those are not going to count. I'm really only counting my serious knives that I actively use. It's like, you know, when you date and one thing's to have a fling, one thing's to actually have a girlfriend or a wife. It's a different thing. So if I was to talk about every single blade that I've held in my hand, we'd be here all day. So once again, I'm sticking to just knives that were pivotal to my development, that I actually had spent serious amount of time using them because I wanted to, not because, you know, I was testing it to review, and then once the review was over, I sent it back or something like that. Now, after using the LT Wright GNS for about 4 years, I'm realizing it does have a couple of shortcomings here and there. Nothing major. You know, if that was the last knife I ever owned in my life, I'd still be all right. But there's a couple of things that could have been improved, in my opinion. One thing is the 01 tool steel. It's definitely, like I said earlier, better than the 1075 and whatever crap this is. But it was just starting to bother me a little bit. I didn't think it was really all that much of a difference in terms of the difference between that and a 1095 high carbon steel like the Mora Bushcraft Black. And I thought I definitely could use a little bit of a steel upgrade. Now, if you know me, you know that I am not a steel snob. I am not a steel nerd. I think that stuff is severely overrated, and people fixate on these things to a ridiculous degree. And I just want a knife that works and holds an edge. But, you know, of course, give credit where credit is due, and some steels I like better than others. And so after the LT Wright GNS, I decided to get the LT Wright Genesis in a flat grind. That's another knife I no longer have that I ended up selling. That's the knife that, it's one of those, like the one that got away, because that knife I really miss. I really want to get back when I'm not so broke. But it's everything that this knife is, but just done to a far superior degree. In fact, I actually ended up liking the Genesis flat better than the GNS. One thing is, I very much love a cat part design, and the full flat for me is something I really like because I'm learning how to cook a lot at this time. I'm learning how to cook a lot of stews and soups and stuff like that, and so I'm doing a lot more chopping of this than I am, you know, batoning and stuff like that. So it made more sense to have a flat grind. So I went to the LT Wright GNS that had this, but it was an A2 tool steel. That it's a little bit more corrosion resistant. It definitely didn't stain like this as quickly. Now, coming up to around the year 2017 is a big game changer of a year. So that's the year that Mora starts to tease the Mora Garberg, their first ever full tang blade. I was very excited to get this blade. And so this is the Mora Garberg. Now, this is the carbon steel version. This one came out later, but at first it was the stainless version. And I got that as soon as I could. And that one had 14C28N stainless steel. And I got that one immediately, and I realized I very much enjoyed stainless steel. So all these years that I'm listening to Dave Canterbury and carbon steel is superior because this and that, I kind of just blindly took it until I got a stainless steel knife and I realized I enjoyed it better. Once again, this is not the same one, but everything else is exactly the same in terms of design and the sheath and everything. So what nobody saw coming is Mora releases the Garberg, but they also release the Consbull. And this one blew my mind. My God, was this one, in my opinion, far better than the Garberg. So even though the designs in terms of like the sheaths and the handles are nearly identical, this one is far more comfortable. It has a rubbier, tackier grip than this one, and it's lightweight. So it just feels more comfortable. And because it's more lightweight, the retention is far better because it's lightweight, so it's stuck in there, as opposed to this one. I've had this one fall off if I'm like walking fast and it was on my hip. You put some pressure and look at that. So that's just physics. This was lighter, and I mean everything that was going for this. It's 35 bucks to 40 bucks, you know, so it's budget friendly. And it's got this killer 90-degree spine. It's got this multi-grind blade. That's a game changer for me. That's going to affect me years down the line. So, of course, you got the Scandi from Moras here. Moras are famous for so, you know, I'm carving figure 4 deadfall traps to catch rodents. And I carved my first bow drill fire with this to make a fire, my primitive fire. And I'm carving spatulas, you know, things off the land, you know, in Texas and New Mexico and Arizona. And it does fantastic. But then it has this very thin tapering blade. And that, of course, is outstanding for cooking food, you know, for meal prep out around the campfire, or just, you know, processing game like rabbits and bluegill and catfish. This one is the knife that I recommend to most people. So when people ask me, hey, I'm getting into the outdoors, and it doesn't matter whether I'm getting into hiking or I'm getting into camping or survival skills, it doesn't matter. Fishing, it doesn't matter. This is the knife that I always recommend people to check out. What I'm going to plug in is the video where I give my top 5 reasons why I consider this to be pound for pound the best fixed blade out there in the market. And I'll have that link to that video up here in the corner. And then after this, around winter of 2018, I end up buying myself a Green River knife. So once again, going back to my love for old world things, old world aesthetic, you know, a very rustic knife, and, you know, it has a history. You know, this was used in the 1800s. I end up checking this knife out. Now, I have a full review on this knife. In fact, I'm not even going to plug in the review. I'll plug in my, you know, my history of this, you know, with like all my Green River knife collection. I'll have it up here in the corner. Check it out. That video is doing extremely well. At this point, this looks boring. You know, in the day that we have something like Mora Garbergs, this looks highly outdated, highly, you know, just impractical by modern day standards. But I think that's just extremely foolish, because men that were doing far more impressive things in the outdoors than we are, we're getting by with this. They're defending themselves if need be in battle, or, you know, in a fight in a saloon. At the same time, they're processing game like beaver and elk and bison with these things, you know, and all kinds of stuff. Once again, they're out there actually needing to survive, where, you know, for us, it's something is not Magna Cut. It's not worthy of, you know, taking out for a 2-hour hike and cooking ramen noodles, which is so silly to me. Once again, a very simplistic thing, but I mean, this was a great knife. And so these two are like yin and yang right here when it comes to my style from about 2018 to about 2020. And you guys know where it's going, longtime viewers. Now, this is a customized handle version that you buy from Crazy Crow. The standard version is a little bit more blocky, and you probably need to take some sandpaper to make it more comfortable. But full tang, $10.95, made in America. It only costs you about 25 bucks if you get the regular version, and if you get this one, about 80 bucks, because it does come with the crappy leather sheath. But this one, I have so many adventures with this knife. I really love it. And so lastly, with these two knives, which were my absolute favorites, longtime viewers are going to know that, of course, around 2020, I decided to finally make the plunge and combine these two in a sketch. I reached out to the maker Woody Smith of Wood Steel Knives up in Washington, and you know, he was interested, and so lo and behold, after a couple of months, we did have this made. This is the this is the Wood Steel Knives Snake Eater knife, my knife design. Of course, you could tell there are elements of both. It carries the traditional old world design and feel and weight and everything of this Green River Hunter, with the modernity of the Mora Consbo with that multi-grind, the 90-degree spine, the updated stainless steel. And of course, I did change some stuff as well. I did bring up a crushing pommel that I did get from the Mora Garberg. I do like crushing pommels, going back to my earliest days with that Ka-Bar knockoff. I think that's very useful. So finally, we do have the finalized version. This is just, I just wanted something a little bit more like an old world knife. So it still retains that rustic old world Green River design. But then again, it is upgraded for the modern day era with the multi-grind and the updated steel. This is AEBL stainless steel. So I love this knife. I have several versions of the Snake Eater, and I've butchered a hog down in South Texas. I have sliced up a rattlesnake to cook up. Plenty of fish, from bluegill, catfish, trout. I mean, all kinds of stuff. I have used the crushing pommel to crush some crabs that I caught in Oregon to cook up. So I have so many great memories with this blade, and to me, this is it. There's no beating this, in my opinion. And granted, of course, there's a biasness because I designed it. Just being logical and just, you know, trying to be fair, I still think this is just perfect for me. I don't think it's perfect for you. I'm not saying, you know, if someone thinks, you know, someone is going to comment being cynical that I'm just trying to sell this to you, I'm not. In fact, to the best of my knowledge, I don't even think these are sold anymore. I'm not sure. You'd have to speak to the maker, Woody Smith, but last time we spoke, I was saying I wanted to retire the design for some reasons. Then we decided not to. But honestly, to be honest, I really don't know. I'm fine. If they don't make them anymore, I have my knife, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. So yeah, I love this knife. I don't think I can beat this, honestly. Now, will I still get knives here and there that, you know, look interesting? Of course. You know, the new Swiss Army knife, Venture knife, looks interesting to me. Even though I may mess around with other knives, this is it for me. I don't think there's anything better for me personally than this. And after years of testing and using in adventures, I love this the most. I don't see myself ever moving on from this one, to be honest, but who knows? So that's about it for me, guys. There you could see the evolution, starting from something very humble like this Ka-Bar knockoff to getting something a little bit more rustic. I'm kind of taking that old school look now, especially with this one. And then, of course, the Consbo. That was such a game changer. And so, yeah, here we are at last. And I end up with my Snake Eater. So yeah, this was a very fun video. It was very fun to go back and reflect on that journey and see where the routes went in terms of, you know, this style and this and that. So that was pretty cool. Now, just to make this a little bit more interesting, let's go ahead and make this a tag video, and we'll talk, you know, we'll see other videos from other makers if they're so inclined to do so. So let us tag Chris from Prepared Mind 101. That is an OG knife channel that was around when I was first getting into this stuff. And he was gone for a little bit, but he's back now. So it's not necessary, but Chris, if you're so inclined, we'd love to see your knife journey. That'd be a cool video, easy content. Also, my buddy Scott J. Marshall, longtime friend, longtime patron and supporter, and he's got a little channel now called Scott's EDC and things. I'd love to see your knife journey as well, my friend, and be sure to tag me, guys, so that way I could reshare these videos. And lastly, of course, let's tag old Cuervo Negro and let's see, you know, his journey with his knives and stuff, see what he likes and all that stuff. So thank you as always for joining me. I know this is a very simple video, but sometimes these are the ones that people love to just play and just get to know each other and, you know, look at cool knives and stuff. So thank you so much as always. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you enjoy knife content, camping, all that good stuff, by all means, subscribe. We're trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're about to hit 98,000, so we're very close. And thank you so much for everything. I'll see you guys next week with another video. Now go outside and get your boots dirty.